Serling.
There are all kinds of wagers and all kinds of odds. From the spin of a roulette wheel to a $2 across the board at a racetrack. But next week on the Twilight Zone, with the aid of Mr. Francho Tone, we tell the story of possibly the strangest bet ever to occur in the annals of chance. Our program is called The Silence. I hope we'll see you then. Here's something that doesn't require any imagination. It's Oasis. If you just took this puff, you'd agree. It's the softest taste of all. Before we meet again, try Oasis for the softest taste of all.
Oh, God damn it, Rod.
I don't know why, but I just kind of missed the blatant, just like, here's a description, and now I'm going to advertise this lovely chilled glass of Oasis, this Oasis drink or a cigarette.
Cerveza Cristal!
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. A little bit of Cerveza Crystal in there. Yeah, I'm intrigued. We got very serious, Rod, tonight. Like, before he started, shilling out cigarettes, but he was very like, you're going to watch this. This is going to be weird. Like, I feel like a level of intensity. He locked eyes with me, and I felt,
You felt what?
So,
Tell me. Describe this feeling.
just,
Frank, are you familiar with this episode or our next last one, Walking Distance?
I am not familiar with this episode, but I have seen a grand number of them, including the next one, or whichever order you watch this in, dear viewer. But I will say this, Rod, I wanted to have my props ready. I did not bring a cigarette, but Rod spoke to me in gambling terms, which just touches my cold dead heart immediately. So
that's why you're on.
That's why I just have to immediately pre-rate this a billion. a billion cigarette drags.
Well, listen, Auto knocked out the ratings with I don't know. Actually, is that in the air order? We have to check. I have to check that. But there is definitely
that's already happened.
You've already had that's already happened. Yeah,
that's the only time I'm ever breaking the 0 to 10 scale. So,
so we go. So Frank goes for 1 billion. 1 billion.
Well,
all right, go on.
Well, pre-ratings aren't official. They're not a museum entry, so
they're not canon.
Yeah.
The NX-01 refit of ratings.
Oh, you take that back. That's a beautiful ship.
It's not. It's a beautiful ship. It's not canon.
All right, wrong franchise. Before you pre-rate, this is not a typical Twilight Zone episode. This is a battle of wills, mano a mano, very pared down, single idea, no great exposition on humanity. Not really. It's just man against man, who will prevail.
Interesting.
And it is we're deep in the heart of my favorites selection. So this is I was gripped when I watched this the first time. I'm like, I gotta know how this ends. So
well, and I appreciate when you selected the episodes to be watched that you didn't pick any direct stinkers, Code of Honor or anything of that ilk. So I look forward to it.
Okay, I'm gonna break the pre-ratings cycle here. I'm gonna go for a healthy 9. I feel like there's an inch of an interesting story here. I feel like there's going to be some, like Otto says, there's going to be some tense dialogue. There's going to be one of my favorite things, which is two people in a room talking, and that being excellent, which is some of my favorite things. That. Yeah, so I'm going to go for a 9. How about you, Stars?
The fact that you kind of clued it into it's more about character than morality play, I'm kind of interested to see how that plays out, because that can either be really, really compelling, or it can feel like you're missing a dimension, because I feel like Idle has talked before about what makes a Twilight Zone episode feel like a Twilight Zone episode versus just like a normal episode of television. But that being said, I am a sucker for battles of will. Guess what? I love the Casino Royale poker scenes to death. I love a good bit of tension. I'm curious to see how if this is going to be at all critical of gambling, because I find gambling to be an absolutely awful approach, awful practice. Don't worry, I don't judge anyone who does it, including myself.
I do.
So I judge everyone's entitled. I'm going to go with an 8.5. I'm kind of just curious to see how they approach it.
So I told Frank already, there is an episode of Twilight Zone where a casino machine chases a man named Franklin around the hotel. So if we get him back for that episode, that would be a good one.
Man, why are we watching that? Go on, Frank. Are you going to stick it with 1 billion, or have you got a rating?
I mean, if I were going to be silly and give it a gambling parlance, I'd do 21. But I am also intrigued with a little bit of a shift, although not out of complete lines for the messages that they were going for at the time. I'm going to give it tentative 8.
Tentative 8. Otto, have you got a rating for us?
Yeah, I'll go 9.5.
9.5.
I think
wow.
it misses certain elements that other Twilight Zones do really well. So it can't be like, oh, this changed my life, but it will succeed for 22 minutes.
Excellent. Well,
I was thinking I'd leave, but okay, fair enough. I guess I'm stuck in.
yeah, we're done. Yeah. Well, whilst you enjoy this episode, I hope you also enjoy the taste of a chocolate and vanilla mash with punchy raspberries to take your taste buds on a sweet, creamy road trip. That has been our sponsored
Thank you,
section
Rob.
for the week. Anyway, let's go and watch the episode.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Welcome everyone to the Holodeck, our journey through things that are not Trek. This week we have been going through the Twilight Zone once more and onto an episode called The Silence. Well, we haven't cut our vocal cords to give you this oratory rendition of this episode. In fact, we are going to talk highly of it. First of all, Otto, why this episode? Why have you brought this one before us in your tome of the best of Twilight Zone?
Captain Idle, I saw your wife this week. She was looking kind of lonely. Dude, what a slime ball.
Yeah, he was doing so. Yeah, go on.
Why did I pick it? The palpable tension. I told the boys once we get to the part where Archie Taylor started invoking Tennyson's wife, I'm like, oh, you've crossed the line, buddy. And I had to see how it was going to end. Could he make it the whole year? And then we had the classic Twilight Zone double twist. He didn't have the money, but that wasn't the real twist. It was that Tennyson had to cut his vocal cords. What a brutal twist there.
Yes, it was. So, we have just spoiled the episode there. If you haven't watched it, well, too late. But you should have watched it before you watch this anyway. So, yes, this follows the delights of a gentleman's club somewhere in America, where
In
two
the Twilight
gentlemen,
Zone.
ask the croupier for directions to this gentleman's club in the Twilight Zone. No, where Mr. Tennyson engages in a bet with who was the other guy? What was his name? Did we get his name?
Colonel Archie Taylor.
That's right, and a bet to say, because he's a bit outspoken, so he decided to say, like, I'll give you 500 grand if you just shut up for a year, pretty much, and locked him in a glass case of emotion, and then went on his way. Guys, Frank, welcome to the Holodeck for the Twilight Zone. How did you find this episode?
So I appreciated the lesson of morality of, hey kids, gambling bad. Because I'm not saying I'm a degenerate gambler as I hold on to 2 die, both on Snake Eyes here, but it was, how do I best put this? It was a throwback to a simpler time. And granted, this episode was probably filmed in very late 50, 8, 9,
Yeah, about 58, I think.
60 some there. It's just so shocking for somebody that hasn't watched this style or this age of a product for so long, the difference in the verbiage. If kids today watch this, they'd have to have a dictionary out and pause it every 7 seconds so they could look up a word and go, what does this mean? But at the same time, it's ageless, it's timeless, it transcends. A guy talking shit to another guy about his wife, that's something that still exists. A gentleman's bet where nobody's going to pay up. Yeah, all the time. So it was fascinating and fantastic, even if it was a little light on the spooky or extra twist at the end. It was coming down to one of 2 possible twists, but I enjoyed it.
So in the behind the scenes, one of the notes that is on pretty much every possible website you could look this up on, they always say this is one of 4 Twilight Zone encounters with no sci-fi or fantasy element. And that's kind of true, but I could point you to 60 different episodes where you could plausibly explain it all with, well, it was all in the guy's mind. So it didn't really happen anyway. And then the Twilight Zone is, did it or didn't it happen? So this one doesn't have those elements, but I don't think that makes it any less Twilight Zone.
Well, here's the question.
Because these are all character stories, and the sci-fi and the fantasy are just there to support the character stories.
Yeah, I mean, here's the question. Is it possible to get your vocal cords removed? Is that a
Sure.
like?
Yes.
And can you still
they were
not
cut.
make a noise? Like, is it, or can you just not go? Can you still like make some sort of
The vocal
vocalism?
cords, like I'm pretty sure it would actually remove that ability, because if your voice box doesn't work, you can't make noise.
Okay, second point.
Well,
What quack doctor does he have to go to literally that evening and go, "Hi, I need my vocal cords." They're like, it is me, Dr. Nick Riviera. Come in.
it wasn't a doctor. It was his wife. He went home to his wife and said, "Hey, honey, I know you're on your way out the door to Tiffany's. I know we're broke because you shop at Tiffany's. My wife, let me tell you, what a battle axe, fellas. But I'm going to go get locked in a room for a year.
You
You're
could
not
write
going
for
to see
Twilight
me.
Zone, by the way.
You can't talk to me for a year, but I'm going to come back with money." And she slit his throat right there and walked out the door.
Well,
That's why when the colonel was gourding him, like, "Hey, buddy, your wife, you should see her out here in the lobby," he didn't care because she's already gone. She already did the worst. That's what I took it as. I don't know.
How about you, Stars?
Yeah, this is
Go
a
ahead.
fucking wild episode, because it's like it's just so brutal. Like, honestly, like we're over here talking about like sci-fi and all that, and it's like, no, this is just pure horror. This is an Edgar Allan Poe story, really.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like something that you'd read along, like the what is it, the Horror of the Red Mask, and like Murders in the Rue Morgue. Like, there's something extremely gothic about this, which I appreciate, and down to the setting being this opulent, like, we've talked in the past about how like very limited set, since like this is literally what two sets. And guess what? They make the most of it because it creates such a palpable feeling of everything being very specifically placed and just everything chosen. Oh man, it really does feel like, because I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil series, and those games are built on the idea of like pre-rendered backgrounds, of like really detailed like paintings essentially of like your backgrounds, and they create this incredible like claustrophobic atmosphere, and just like you can feel what those environments feel like. And I feel like that's what this episode really gets across in like and it's a bit of a subtle thing, because like it's all about like the willpower. My brain is, I'm just
The Battle of Wills.
Yes.
the battle of the wills. Sorry, my brain's not working right now. But it's like, I feel like if you had this in another setting, like if you had this in a more modern club, if you had this in like, a bar or whatever, it wouldn't work the same. It has to be like an old-timey club. It has to have these codes of honor. It has to have this antiquated idea of honor and pride and the gentleman's code to work, and that just adds to it as like kind of gothic horror-y film. I really like that. That really appeals to me as someone who appreciates gothic horror.
But on the other side, it's also kind of relatable. Have you guys ever sat around like a campfire with your buddies and played like Never Would I Ever or Never Have I Ever? And what would you do this for $1 million, something like that? And it's like this
Timmy,
concept
shut the
is
fuck
very
up. We're trying to talk over it.
this concept is very relatable. But it's the setting, and then the stakes that kind of bump it up to the next level.
Yeah, because I feel like everyone has had this, a person that just cannot stand because they find them obnoxious. And it's, in fact, I'm going to be talking a lot about other things in relation to this, because it brings up a lot of like parallels to me. But there was a Mike Leigh film about just like this poor woman who just like everyone found completely like distasteful. She was just over the top, wouldn't shut up. But you just see her life disintegrate over the course of a year in relation to this other family, and then the final shot of the movie is just like a slow pull in on her, just as she just like slowly disintegrates in front of the camera. And there's something about that kind of called to mind here, of just the destruction of two men in very different ways, and just like, man, that's powerful. I appreciate that.
There's a lot of parallels, wasn't there, between their sort of own sort of ineptitudes, like his ineptitude to not, be able to sort of not spend money due to his wife, and then, very chatty and sort of always sort of like making up for it in other ways, and then the other guy's ineptitude to not show off or not to sort of like or be a bit overconfident, and by the end both of those things kind of got the better of them, and one guy was broke and the other guy couldn't talk, so they were both basically out of it by the end of it, which I think like we talk about how this wasn't a Twilight Zone like science fiction concept, but I think the very concept of human morality being played and toyed with an unexpected unexpected ending does feel very Twilight Zone. I feel like this has that, like I complained about a previous episode, I forget which one it was, but feeling like, oh, this doesn't feel enough, this doesn't have that science fiction conceit that we expect with the Twilight Zone. But I think this is the opposite. Like you said, it was a horror, it was a play on human morality, and I part of me was thinking, like, because a lot of these episodes, this one was written by Rod, wasn't it, Otto?
Yeah, and it was he subconsciously based it on Anton Chekhov's short story called The Bet, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, like, you the one thing that's amazed me with Rod Serling over this series, all the episodes he's written, they are so varied. They are so lots of different topics, from science fiction to horror to human tragedy to drama, and I feel like the best writers, are the most experienced. They have the most sort of like life experience under their belt, and they can draw from direct parallels from things they've read, things they've experienced. And this kind of illustrates to me that, like, he kind of has encompassed every little facet of human psyche in his writings, and that's absolutely fascinating. And another like nice tick in the Rod Serling is an awesome human being category for me.
So I'm curious, that Anton Chekhov, is that the same Anton Chekhov who is responsible for Chekhov's gun?
I would assume so. I don't know.
I would assume so, because like, if so,
he
because
was
that'd
the
be the
head
Russian
officer of the
dramatist.
USS Enterprise.
Because for those who are not familiar, Chekhov's gun is the concept that if you have a play and you've got your specific set directions, your set dressing, and you specify that there is a gun on the wall in Act 1, that gun has to go off by Act 3, otherwise there's no point in having it.
Yes, Anton Chekhov was the same person that wrote the concept of Chekhov's gun, yes. Okay,
yeah, cool. I figured it was, because it feels like a very Russian dramatist like thing to do. And it kind of came to mind because we remarked on everyone feeling overdressed, and I remarked on the cravat, and it's like, oh, I feel like that might have clued Idle into the idea of the nerve,
yeah.
like, kind of
thing. I caught we were doing a watch wrong. I was just like, I bet he said his vocal cords were moving. I'm like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
Frank.
Cool.
Frank, I saw your wife the other day. She's looking a little lonely.
Okay, so I'll say this real quick: is that actor's name that played Colonel Archie Taylor is Francois Tone.
Francois Tone,
yeah. That gravelly voiced angel. I swear to God, he must have done radio dramas in the 20s and 30s. I could listen to him narrate anything.
Just like that. He definitely had his Smooth Oasis cigarettes just before filming. I can tell you that.
Oh, God.
So a little bit about Francois Tone. While we were watching, Idle said, well, why is he peeking around the corner like a perv? Quote Rod Serling, on the second day of shooting, Francois Tone didn't show up, and we waited and we waited. The call is 6 in the morning when it got to be 10 a.m. and everyone had been sitting there in their own smoke waiting and no Francois Tone. We get his agent who tracks him down. He's in a clinic. Tone had been injured the night before, and one side of his face was scraped raw. According to Serling, the actor had been beaten by the boyfriend of a girl he'd approached in a restaurant parking lot. I said, so be it, Serling recalled. Come on in, Franch, and we'll shoot the other side of your face, which we did. So I didn't tell you this ahead of time. I want to give you something to look at on a rewatch. The whole second day thing with the glass room, that set, they only show one half of his face for the entire episode. So it makes him look kind of sinister.
Oh, that's
and
incredible.
Between that and the voice, it's kind of creepy, but then you realize it's because the whole side of his face was scraped raw.
So he actually got the crap beat out of him for going up to somebody and going, "Hey, your wife."
He's a method actor.
I saw her entering young men's cars. One of them might have been mine.
Oh, God. Oh, jeez.
So when they introduced Tennyson, he's annoying, right? And like the guy behind him was falling asleep, literally. But by the end of it, how sorry did you feel? How effectively did they make you root for this guy who was really annoying at the beginning?
A little bit, yeah.
So it reminds me. I'm talking all about other things in today, but I feel like it's just the way my mind's working today. There's a book by Evelyn Waugh, I believe, called A Handful of Dust. Um, and it's a story all about I guess you can tell I studied English literature. Um, yeah, about like this 1930s lord who just like he's called Tony Last, I believe his name is, and he's just like this obnoxious kind of dickbag, and he's not offensive, he's not a bad person, but he's not a good person either. Um, and funnily enough, he goes through this entire thing of like his wife going through an affair that she doesn't even really want. She just does it because it's mildly exciting. Um, and through a convoluted chain of events, Mr. Last ends up in I think it's the Amazon. He's like captured by this guy who just wants to read him like shitty books like for the rest of his life, and he's just trapped there, forced to listen to him. And it's like it's the exact same trick of I want to make you root for someone that you find completely obnoxious, who is not necessarily like harmful, but just annoying. And like I mentioned, it's like everyone's had someone in their life like that, and it really does make you question: okay, how far does annoyance take you? Does annoyance stretch into hate? Does hate lead to suffering? Does suffering lead to the dark side?
No, get out of it. Get that Star Wars shit out of it.
And I feel like we've mentioned there's no sci-fi twist to this, but I don't know. I don't feel like it has to have a sci-fi or paranormal twist to be Twilight Zone. I feel like it just needs to be an observation of the human condition, and as an observation of how far people will go to get back at each other for petty little things. I feel like it's really sharply observed. I feel like it's really because I could see this happening. I could see this being a thing because especially with people with money, they're just so casually cruel to each other and to themselves. Just like they'll do anything for it, and it's like breaking
that
open
makes it even
craven
even
aspect.
scarier, doesn't it?
Yeah,
yeah. Actually, I'm thinking of in Printer's Devil, the scene, the deal with the devil scene, where they close in the shades, and Burgess asks them, "You don't really believe in the devil, do you? Eccentric rich guys do weird things all the time." So, it's true. So you talked about how far would annoyance push someone. In Serlian's initial draft, based on the short story *The Bet* by Anton Chekhov, Taylor's abuse of Tennyson goes beyond the verbal goading seen in the final draft. At one point, Taylor turns up the heat in the prisoner's glass cell, making it unbearable for Tennyson. He also tries to poison his food. On the final day of the bet, Tennyson is found dead of an apparent heart attack. Taylor argues that this means Tennyson lost the bet. The wager called for him to live in silence for a year. He did not live. He died before the allotted time. George Alford, the colonel's lawyer, is disgusted with this justification, suggesting that Taylor will face sterner judgment from God someday. It's discovered only after Tennyson's death that he had the nerves to his vocal cords severed. I like the ending as is, because that double twist reveal is what everyone will remember. But
yeah, I feel like having it the way it is, it has that unique moral piquancy of they're both kind of shitty people that abuse the bet to get something they wanted, and it comes down to your personal judgment of who's worse. Like, is Tennyson worse because he cheated right from the outset, or is the colonel worse because he had no intention of fulfilling the bet and only went through it because he had no belief that the guy would be able to do it? And your estimation of who is the bigger asshole will vary. Like, I feel like most of us probably here would agree that it's the colonel because he's a dickbag.
Well, did he really cheat though?
Yeah,
I wouldn't say he did.
The
bet was that you can't speak for 1 year, and he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't. There was no terms to say that he, we never got to see the terms of the agreement, like,
but yeah,
noises he was allowed to make, like if he yawned or coughed, like was he allowed to cough? Like that counts as a noise. So we never got to see the terms. So I kind of agree with Otto that he honored it.
Well, it would be like kind of cheating.
If he taped his mouth closed, would that be cheating?
Well, it's one of these things of like the fact that he didn't disclose that he had done that. It's like entering
an episode if he did.
Well, yeah, because that's what makes it a cheat. Like, I feel like that's what gives it because there's a reason he hides it, because he's cheating. But the only reason he doesn't get called out for it is because the other guy cheated first, or cheated in arguably a worse way. Because Tennyson actually sacrificed something, and you can make an argument whether or not Taylor actually did. He sacrificed his honor, whatever that's worth. Like, is it really a sacrifice to lose
nothing,
your
no.
honor if you're clearly an honor? Yeah, well, is it really a sacrifice to lose your honor if you clearly never had any to begin with? You know, that kind of question.
That's true.
You know, it's like, oh, I've lost my honor in front of everyone. Yeah, but it clearly didn't matter to you because you were still happy to be a douchebag. You know, like
The real victim is Tennyson. I mean, like, yeah, he lost his
yeah,
vocal cords,
absolutely, yeah.
and because there was never a two-way bet, was it? It was just a case of I'll give you 500 grand to shut up.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like we'll put 500 grand on the table, and whoever gets to the end of it, if you do it, you know, I owe you it or you owe me it. But yeah, it was pretty much
yeah.
you know win-win for
Yeah, like I would say that
for the
Tennyson
Colonel.
cheated, but I don't. I think that it's a case of like he cheated in a smart way, where because we don't see the full terms of the bet, you can absolutely make the argument that he didn't,
Yeah.
because all he did was not disclose that he'd had his vocal cords cut, and arguably it's a case of, well, you never said that I wouldn't exchange these things, you know, like. But that's what I think adds to it. There's
Yeah.
levels to it that adds to the horror of the final reveal.
Definitely. Would you like to know 2 actor fun facts? There were 2 actors here from the original series. Can anyone guess who they were and where you've seen them?
I feel like I would have seen Tennyson, but I don't know where from in TOS.
He did.
He has a kind of
He
face
was. Yeah,
where
that
I
was
was
correct.
thinking-
You'll go, oh yeah, when he tells you.
He will absolutely.
Is he the android from the second Mud episode?
No.
The Norman or whatever his name is?
No, he's not.
No, but good guess.
Liam Sullivan, who played Tennyson, actually played Parman in Plato's Stepchildren. You know, that very well-known episode. And the club member Felix Locker played, which was, I believe, that was the lawyer, wasn't it? Was Felix the lawyer?
No. I don't think he even got a line. He was
Oh,
he was
okay.
just kind of there.
Oh, fair enough. Well, he played Mr. Johnson in The Deadly Years, so that's two TOS references. there
Dies
for you.
right at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
That memorable role.
Exactly. Yeah.
So a quote from Liam Sullivan, who plays Tennyson. The long speech that I had in the opening sequence was 3 pages. The day shooting, Rod came up and asked me if I could memorize an additional page of dialogue on the spot. I was doing so well, he wanted to lengthen the scene. I said if he could write it that fast, memorize it that fast. He went off to a corner and started scribbling. He handed me the sheets off of his notepad. I picked a corner and started memorizing. He was very pleased with the result. And then, of course, as everyone else has, Sullivan went on to say in the interview what a great guy Serling is and how he became a fan of Twilight Zone
Woo-woo.
after this role.
As someone that
Everyone
has
just being converted to the cult of Rod.
like that has like flicked into my head that like I might like to do amateur dramatics one day, or like do like acting one day. Like then some people comes like say, yeah, I just casually memorized a sheet of script, and like thinking I can't do that. I have a brain like a sponge. Like there's no I'm Marlon Brando. You'd have to tape it like to behind like my palm and shit like that. Like how people memorize just go like, oh, I can memorize 3 pages of writing and another page on the fly. Sure, no problems. Like Jesus.
So let's talk a little bit about Liam Sullivan. It doesn't say a word for the whole second and third act, I guess you could call it. Did a lot with his voice. Every time your wife came up, like just the gamut of emotions it ran. I thought it was real. And he's got great physical charisma. He's got a great look.
Well, one half of him does,
you
anyway.
know, a handsome rich guy. No. Liam, not.
Oh,
Colonel
the tennis. Sorry, yeah.
So anyway, I thought he did a great job with it.
Yeah, no, he's got this kind of look about him where it's like, you know how you look at a certain actor and you're like, you were born to play XYZ role. You were born to be like a gangster. You were born to be a Nazi, which is always one. You look like you were born in the 70s. Like, there are certain actors that have a certain physical type, and he looks like the kind of guy who should be in a country club but doesn't fit in. Like, there's just something about kind of the way that
I didn't
he's
realize
like an
that was a
insult.
look.
I don't know. There's just something about him where it's like he just has that kind of face where it's like he's handsome enough to fit in, gentleman, but he doesn't quite fit the vibe of being a distinguished older gentleman because he's also substantially younger than almost everyone else apart from
Sorry.
Taylor's lawyer, which is a significant part of
I'm
it.
going to use that as an insult from now on. You look like you walked into a country club and no one told you to leave.
I don't mean as a disparagement among the man. He's a very, very talented actor, but it's just a case of like there's a certain physicality to him that worked here. Like obviously he's a very talented actor, but I could see a case of how the look plays into casting as well. He looks like he fits this role. Like I could see that having played into it.
Frank, we've paid you for £500,000 to be quiet for the last 10 minutes. What have you got to say?
Gentlemen,
You've won the
given,
Yeah,
given
well
the
done.
theme of this episode, I have a story for you. And it's up for you to decide if this is real or just something Frank made up. Frank has a very dear friend for 20 years named Jack. And upon one of my birthdays, Jack gave me a favor card that says redeemable for one favor with no exceptions or exclusions, non-transferable, and expires 1 year later on my next birthday. Now, 4 days before giving me this, Jack and I were out to lunch, and I ordered a dessert that I rather enjoy, a slice of cheesecake, and it was one of the last slices of cheesecake that this establishment had. I got up and went to the restroom to excuse myself to wash my hands, and I came back. Jack had eaten my cheesecake. Now,
Wow.
this was an unforgivable sin, so I plotted for a year, and I got the blessing of his wife, and I brought Jack and his wife to Las Vegas with me, almost a year to the day later. And unbeknownst to him, I walked him through the bowels of a casino right next to a tattoo parlor where I had booked an appointment. And I walked him in, and I put the favor card down, and I said, Jack, you're getting a tattoo of my name on your ass. This is my favor card, and this is for eating my cheesecake. Jack walked out of that tattoo parlor. No tattoo was done.
Oh, Jack, you asshole.
Oh.
Now, was
Did he cut his
Jack in
butt
the
cheeks
wrong? Or was I in the
To win the
right?
bet.
He made it better. He bought me a slice of cheesecake the next day, and all was forgiven.
That's no way is better than tattooing your name on his butt.
Hell, I'll tattoo your name on my butt. I'd do that for free.
All right,
It-
Idol, calm down.
It wasn't a supernatural episode, but it's an old story, but there's so many elements of it. It might not be the top rated Twilight Zone episode of all time, but really it was a fantastic episode of television, and there was a moment for like a minute and a half where it was kind of dragging along, and he thought, boy, this is going to be a long 22 minutes. And then just that they turned the notch up just a little bit on, hey, your wife, and just showing the one side of the face, which now we know because he got mauled by a pack of dogs. That it was very enjoyable.
I really want to know what it would have been like to watch this on air, because it's like, obviously nowadays we sit here and we watch that and we go, oh, you motherfucker, right? You motherfucking piece of. And you know what? I want to imagine that back in like 1961 when this came out,
Fans are writing
There were-
letters in.
I was gonna say
No.
there's no like Discord to like vent your Reddit to go to the discussion thread and go, that motherfucker. You'd literally have to write it in the paper and wait 3 weeks for publication.
no, I want to imagine that like you've got like, mom, dad, the kids, grandma, granddad, uncle. They're all sat down around our brand new TV. They watch this episode, and when that happens, all the adults just go, oh, that motherfucker, including grandma. I feel like that's just, it's such a visceral bastard turn. It's so fucking underhanded.
Well,
It's so dirty.
the amount of money was so like incomprehensible for that time because
Yeah.
the world had just emerged from post World War II era, and nobody had $500,000. That's like made up money. Not even the Rockefellers had that much. But to have just a guy sitting in a club being like, yo, too much, I'll give you $500,000 to shut up. No, but it made you go, well, maybe. Like in today's terms, that'd be like $20 million. Just shoot the guy.
It's a little over $5 million, I think, but
That's even worse.
Still a lot of money.
Still-
I'd
still.
shut the hell up for a year for $5 million.
Yeah.
I'd take the 5,000.
Yeah.
So there was one little clue. I don't know if anyone caught it. I didn't catch it until it was pointed out. Shortly after they start in Act 2, Colonel Taylor comes to the butler and asks, is he eating well? Is the appetite good? And the butler says, he wasn't eating well up until last week. It's been 9 weeks since he's been in there. So basically the first 8 weeks he didn't eat very well. It's because he had his
Yeah.
vocal cords cut. So
Remembering. That's interesting. Okay, let's go on to our
Bread.
the moment in the episode that stood out to you the most. Frank, as our newly baked in this loaf of bread, what was the moment that stood out to you most in the episode?
Well, I'm gonna leave one of the more obvious ones for one of my esteemed panelists. And because it's still with me to this point, it was one of the opening shots of the episode, panning through the gentleman's club, looking at everyone just waiting with bated breath as another story came out of this loudmouth. And there lies in a chair a corpse with a newspaper. And you see that he's not a corpse because the paper kind of moves. And then at the end of the episode, he's like, like he's very animated at the end. I was waiting on him. I was hoping he would show up at the end.
His previous bet was you have to be stay asleep for a year, and he just killed himself.
Yes. That's how this guy kept getting his money.
That's cheating. You can't kill yourself.
I love good background gags or background characters. So,
the guy's the 1961 Shia porn of the episode. He killed it. We're all talking about him.
I'm going to go for my bread. It was definitely a directional shot right at the start when Tennyson's talking, and you just get lots of close-up shots of mouths, of ears. And I was thinking, like, is something going on here? Is this something like, is this the science fiction conceit? Is he like an android or something, or is being fed through to another room and he's talking? And it's all very, very dramatic way of showing it as opposed to the rest of the episode. But then I suppose it indicates, like, how annoying he's being is getting into everyone's mouths and everyone's ears. So, like, that definitely stood out to me as my bread.
Well, they had so little. I mean, you have two sets. What can you do directorially to flare it up to make it look different? By the way,
that lead actors get mauled by dogs, and then he had to.
Actually, that really worked in their favor because it added an element. That first set, the whole club set, only cost them $330 for that day one set. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Go on, since you're going also, what was your bread?
Since I'm the Tennyson of the group and won't stop talking, I'll keep talking about my bread. Yeah, it is the reveal. But you shouldn't say that because it's so obvious. So I'll take on my secondary one. Is the first time he brings up his wife because it's like, all right, now it's on. Now the bet has really started, and that's when I told the guys when I was watching. That's when I thought, okay, I gotta know how this ends. Whatever, don't call me, put the phone on mute. I got to see how this ends. So that was when he kicked it up a notch. That was awesome.
Stars.
For me, I'm gonna have to take an easy way out, but I feel like you guys are gonna hear it and you're gonna agree with me. Tennyson's face, just like throughout the entire thing, like I feel like he is there is just such a way that like you see he's so transparent, which is kind of incredible for a man who's like kind of spending an entire year kind of lying. Like his emotions play across his face just so easily with every interaction. Your wife, it's like fucking cunt. Just like the way his eyes were flickering as like the calendar days were going by. And I think one of the most effective shots was at the end when he realizes he's been had. And it's just like the pinprick of like tears at his eye.
One tear, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like it especially stuck with me because nowadays you see how they do tears in films, and especially in TV shows. And it's like, yes, well, I love Star Trek Discovery, but the way that everyone cries in that is very, very dramatic and very, very Hollywood. And I appreciate when crying is either understated or ugly. I love ugly crying. Like think of like Lon at the end of season 2, episode 3, when she's like dealing with like ugly honking. I am desolated crying, or just like that single tear, like that look on his face, that just stricken. That was all for nothing. That's gonna stick with me. That's my bread.
Excellent. How about?
But yeah, when Archie is asking how he's doing, they show Tennyson. He's got this real smug grin, half grin on his face. He's like, "Yeah, you didn't think I'd make it this long." And when at the beginning when Archie reads what the bet is out loud, he's got this real sheepish look on his face, like, "Oh great, everyone here thinks I'm annoying," like he didn't realize it before that.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, my second bread will definitely be the way it's like what might be to outside people be quite shocking, but I dislike you intensely, Tennyson. And it's like the whole speech.
Yeah.
is like,
Horrifying.
You're a bona fide asshole. Like, just like him just coming out in front of the club, just going, I cannot stand you. I will make up shit to get you to be quiet for a year. Like, yeah.
It's like that episode of The Simpsons when Homer's visiting Flanders in the mental home and he has to read a card. Times when I pretended to be your friend were fraudulent.
Definitely. Okay, gentlemen, let's go on to...
Well, if that's the best they could do, this should last about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. We will retrace our steps and figure out what's going on.
You've got 5 minutes. Do it.
Do it. Break me some bread. Yes, 5 minutes, gentlemen. How would you change the last 5 minutes of this episode? Oh, go on.
Frank had the perfect one. I already like his. And so...
I mean, I would have... there are several ways you could do it, but I would have had it come out to where he's shaking him and he says, I don't have the money, I'm so sorry, for him to go, you son of a bitch, and then go, oh, aha, the clock's daylight savings time, clock's an hour off, sorry, haha, and then oh well, but and then it turns out he didn't have the money, so then nobody gets paid.
In any other episode that would have been so lame, but we've already proven that Colonel Archie Taylor is such a dick. Like that would have fit his character perfect. He would have done anything to try to win that bet.
Idle. Who's more of a dick? Burgess is Meredith's wife in the Nuclear Apocalypse episode, or Colonel Archie Taylor?
No. The Apocalypse episode wife. She was that. No, she was who does that? It's all right to renege on about 500 grand when you don't have it, and like guys' vocal cords get ripped out. Who just scrawls out and tortures the house? Anyway, sorry, we're digressing. My final 5 minutes would be very simple. You know me, I'm a man of class and of few words. Literally, he comes out, and I'm not going to change much. It's literally going to be the last minute rather than the last 5 minutes. The whole scene plays out, and instead of the camera pulling back at the end, he just strangles him. He strangles him and kills him and just goes, you mother... Like, literally, I cut out my vocal cords for this. He literally just launches at him and just strangles and kills him and just, like, that human play. That
Can I add a little bit of directorial flair on there?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
He writes something down, he hands it to Taylor, and then you just get a cut of the camera. It says, I'm going to kill you, and then you get the fucking violent drawing.
And just launches in. Turns into Jerry Springer or something, Everyone's holding him back.
So I'd like to point out that this is the most Truman Show episode. He's literally in a glass case being observed from the outside.
I don't get this reputation. It's only like 4 episodes I said it's the Truman Show. This is like number 16.
So my fake last 5. This one doesn't count. Is he would send in a woman to infiltrate him, just like in Truman Show, and fall in love, and then get him to say something to her, like where they think the microphones aren't listening, but she's got a wire on her, and then he's won the bet. So there you go. But that's not my real 5.
What's your real
Stars,
5?
go ahead.
Okay.
We'll get that. My last 5 minutes is going to be kind of similar, but with a little bit of a different twist. You have like the same setup of, I don't have the money, and you just see Tennyson's face just like fall. He reaches down onto like a platter, grabs a knife, cuts, and then he cuts his vocal cords. Like he just goes at him with a knife. And then they're both in hospital, and then they're both just silent, looking at each other. And then you just both see them reach for a bit of paper, right? And then you cut, and that's
then they actually form a buddy cop duo after that. And it gets syndication. It's brilliant. No talking, all crime.
Yeah.
Go on, also. What was your real last 5 minutes?
Good cop, quiet cop. They turn sweating the perp. Yeah. All right. So while Alfred is outside Tennyson's cage and he's ramping up the dollar amounts, 5,000, 6,000, just end this bet. Tennyson's wife arrives, and she's been looking for him. The letters never arrived. She finally found out what's going on, and she comes to him and tells him how much she cares for him. This is not an evil woman. She misses him, and the money isn't worth it. This 5,000 would fix most of our bills. Just end the bet. But more than she misses having him around. She misses their clever conversation. She begs to hear the sound of his voice again and end the bet. And when Tennyson refuses for reasons which the audience will soon learn because he's already had him cut, Alfred capitulates. He says, I don't have the money after all. And so, gut punch for both of them. And then Tennyson has to remove the cravat and show that, he scribbles a note and shows that he can't do that anyway. And I feel like that makes both the guys look like bigger dicks because the wife actually loved him. She really just wanted him and not the money. And he didn't realize that. And Colonel let him and his wife down by ruining their lives together. So I would have liked that, I think.
I was thinking, there was like in the back of my mind an inkling of like, how do I make this ending happy? And it's you have all the other club members like pitch in to give him the $500,000 or whatever. Yeah. That's It's a Wonderful Lifestyle ending, but I don't feel like it suits the rest of the episode.
No, considering most of those people in clubs are equally the same equivalent of a dick, so...
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, how about, gentlemen, we need to go on to our...
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5. Associational rating norm -3.
That's much too low a rating.
It's much too low a rating.
Seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my...
Associational bread norm -5. Don't know why that cut off earlier there. Yes, gentlemen, our rating criteria. Frank, I'm going to give you the opportunity if you have a rating criteria for us, please. If not, I do have one to fill, but I will open the field to you to name this one, if you so please.
Oh God, see, I have a feeling you're going to have something more clever than I.
The pro move is you pass this week, and then you take our series finale next week. That's the one that everyone's going to get into.
That's true. I would, if I did anything, it would be like severed vocal cords. But I'm going to defer to you.
Okay. In which case, gentlemen, how many glass cases of imagined infidelity out of 10 will you give this episode? Frank, please.
I pre-rated it as a tentative 8, I believe.
You did, yes.
I am going to give it 7.5. Your wife's in a glass case.
Excellent. Otto.
Yeah, I'm pretty firm on the 9.5. This is about as good as you can get without some kind of like big moral that you can chew on for weeks afterwards. This was so compelling. And I like my minimalism. So they do so much with so little. It's two guys. It's a battle of wills. It's got a horrific twist at the end, unless you're, mega brain idol who's figured it out ahead of time. It was just, and they gave you the double twist. I like Liam Sullivan's great physical charisma. All the acting's done with his face. The happy accident of shooting half of Francho Tone, which really made him, between that and the voice, made him really slimy scumbag. So the fact that they flip, you start disliking this guy because everyone knows someone who won't shut the hell up. If you don't know him, he's me. And then the flip is, real sad for him at the end. So this hit on every cylinder. This was probably one of the few that stick out in my mind as I had to know how it ends. So I really found that gripping. So I'll stick at 9.5 glass cases of imagined infidelity out of 10.
Very nice. Stars.
You know what? I'm going to be controversial, and I'm going to say 10 glass cases of imagined infidelity out of 10. This just hit all the right boxes. I cannot imagine a better version of this particular story. We were going through our last 5 minutes and that doesn't make it better. That doesn't make it better. This is a different way it can go, but it doesn't make it better. It doesn't, there's nothing you can do to enhance just the pure brutality of it, the pettiness of it, it's one of those, it's like a 25-minute shot in the arm of pure negativity. And it's not often I go in for those. I'm someone who really appreciates optimism in my stories. I like being happy about things. I like being thrilled and genuine. I love that. But every now and then, you get hit with something that is just so dark and unpleasant, and a side of human nature that you don't like to talk about. But it compels you because it's that's true. There's a bit of that's real. And I feel like the fact that you said this is based on a story by Anton Chekhov, like this is very like I really adore like Chekhov. I really adore like Dostoevsky as well. Like Dostoevsky stuff is so fucking good. In fact, there's a quote by him that I love. Let me bring it up because it's just like I feel like it's appropriate here, and it'll kind of bring into. Yeah, here we go. People speak sometimes about the bestial cruelty of man, but that is terribly unjust and offensive to beasts. No animal could ever be so cruel as a man, so artfully, so artistically cruel. I love Dostoevsky, and guess what? That means I love this. So this is a 10 glass cases of. It's excellent. It's supreme. This is perfect. I cannot imagine a way to make this better.
So in Chekhov's The Bet, the way that ends, I hope you weren't planning on reading this right after, but the way it ends is, well, actually, he bets him 5 years. You couldn't be in prison for 5 years. The guy says, 5, I'll take 15, like a fucking idiot. So he's in prison for 15 years, 10 extra years, just because he wanted to flex, I guess. But he uses that time to read and become, scholarly, and reads volumes and volumes, learns all these languages, and in studying humanity, realizes how terrible it is. And so he chooses to end the bet 1 minute early, walk out of his own accord, and just, off into the wilderness. And it's kind of a letdown of an ending to me, especially compared to this one. But it does kind of, marry up with that idea of humanity can be so bleak at times that, what am I doing that really matters in this moment? So,
definitely.
Idle.
Yes, I'm gonna give this a 9. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I know I've said previously or many times on previous Twilight Zones, I love character studies of just two people talking, or two, and again, you can say like, oh, it's just two people talking, yeah, but if it's done well, it's really good. And this was one of those occasions where it was really good. I kind of felt the bits where he came down and antagonized him a bit dicky, and I kind of felt like it could have been like. There could have been a different scene there. There could have maybe them talking about the inherent humanity of each other and what stood themselves apart, and maybe explored why Tennyson was a little bit of a chat shit. But
sometimes men are just about ego, man.
Exactly, yeah, and that's fine. So but apart from that, 9 is absolutely solid. I really enjoyed it. Maybe it didn't have quite the it wasn't as sci-fi as most people who would like Twilight Zone to be, but as an episode of television, it's just so good.
I feel like if this was filmed today, Colonel Taylor would show up. He'd hold his phone up to the glass case, and it'd be like a picture of his wife, like out and about doing something. Like that's how he would
take TikToks together or something.
Yeah.
And on that, we end this with a solid.
Yeah, it's like TikTok set to like the turtles as happy together.
Yes. With the monkeys playing in the background, definitely. Okay, yeah, though this ends at a top 9, one of our top-rated episodes in terms of Twilight Zone, as it were. Frank, thank you for joining us this week. Mr. Serling, if you are here this week, I'm conjuring Mr. Serling. Is he here this week? No? Okay. Auto.
No, one too many Oasis. But, guys, next week is our series finale for Twilight Zone of our initial run here. And it's a very good episode. So this is not just one that's in my favorites; it's in everyone's favorites. So you don't want to miss next week. Walking Distance.
Walking Distance, and we're walking there together. See you later. Oh, hang on, no, stay
silent, obviously.
Welcome everyone to the Twilight Zone, our journey through things that are not Trek and no, hang on, no, fuck, what do I say? Shit, let me do that again.
Oh my god!
I actually fucked it up.
Leave it in. Keep rolling.
No.
No.
Take 4.
Right.